Hello everybody, welcome to this video. My name is Joanna Medina and today I'm going to tell about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde book. Okay guys, before to start I would like to give you a brief biography author. So, the author of this book is Robert Louis Stevenson. He was born on November 13, 1850 in Edinburgh, Scotland. He is best known for his evergreen works like Teacher Island, Kina, and of course Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He born to respectable middle-class parents. He was an only child, but he spent a difficult childhood suffering chronic health problems, so he was mostly confined to bed. But Stevenson, to follow his father's steps, was sent to study science at Edinburgh University to become a civil engineer. Stevenson, on the other hand, wasn't much interested in studying science, so he spent ample time studying French literature, Scottish history, and the work of Darwin and Spencer. Okay guys, Stevenson achieved great literary success in the 17th, but Robert Louis Stevenson died at the age of 44 years old. A few hours after suffering a brain hemorrhage on December 3, 1894. So, to start to talk about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I have to say that this book takes place in London at the height of the Victorian age, when scientific and industrial progress were rising on an exponential curve. However, this story is ambivalent, even pessimistic about such advantage. If you don't know what is Victorian age, in British history was the period between approximately 1820 and 1914, corresponding broadly but not exactly to the period of Queen Victoria's reign. Before to start to talk about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde's story, I would like to give you some important information about this book. So, the name by which the book is best known is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. However, the full name is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Stevenson wrote this book in 1885 in Bournemouth, England, and it was published on 5th January 1886. The genre of this book is horror, drama, and Victorian Gothic. As I said before, the setting for this history was on the streets of London, and this book has 10 chapters. Yes, 10 chapters. Now, to continue, the characters are Mr. Utterson, Mr. Lanyon, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Mr. Enfield, and Paul. So, the main characters are Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. By Mr. Utterson is the lawyer who tries to uncover the mystery. Now, let's start with the summary. Anyway, Stevenson begins the history by telling us the description of Mr. Utterson. In this description, Stevenson tells us how Utterson's personality is, what he usually does, and gives us to understand that he is an honorable person with few friends but very loyal. After this, he told us that Utterson walks every Sunday through the streets of London with his friend Mr. Enfield. The book tells us that one day while they were walking along a specific street in London, Mr. Enfield saw a door and immediately remembered a chapter of his life that was a little bit terrific. At that moment, he begins to narrate the tragedy and tells Mr. Utterson what happened. The history is about an evil man who ran over a girl, leaving her lifeless. And regardless of what happened, this man paid £100 in order to avoid problems. Clearly, no one has £100 in a pocket to pay immediately. So this man generates a check. In this part, Mr. Enfield gives the first detailed description of the edelman who is Mr. Hyde. It should be clarified that every time someone talks about Mr. Hyde in this book, they pronounce him as a detestable, unpleasant person. But Mr. Utterson was surprised when Mr. Enfield told him that the check was legitimately signed by Dr. Jekyll. As I told you, Dr. Jekyll is friend of Mr. Utterson. So, when Mr. Utterson came home, was very confused by what his friend had told him. He began to read the testament that one day Dr. Jekyll left him. Testament said that if Dr. Jekyll died or disappeared for 3 or more months, all his belongings will be transferred to Mr. Hyde, the bad person, the monster. So, misplaced by what the testament said, Mr. Utterson decided to visit Dr. Lyon to find out if he knew anything about this man, Mr. Hyde, about this man named Mr. Hyde. But unfortunately, Dr. Lyon told him, to Mr. Utterson, that he knew nothing about Mr. Hyde. Breathless to know who Mr. Hyde was, Mr. Utterson decided to go to the street where the tragedy happened, and after a while he saw the disgusting man, and he didn't doubt to speak him. Mr. Utterson asked him about Dr. Jekyll, and Mr. Hyde answered that he wasn't in the house. But when he answered him, he did that with a cool look. So, throughout the book, suspicious events are evidenced by Dr. Jekyll, who undoubtedly Mr. Utterson, in the end, understands the relationship between Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I won't tell you the end of this book because I would really like invite you to read this literary work because it is really good. To conclude this long video, I would like to give you my point of view of this book. First, I have and I want to clarify that I am really bad reader. So I don't deny that I start reading this book just to get a grade, but as I was progressing in the reading, I got so much into the history that I was very spoiled and didn't want to be interrupted. Last Tuesday happened to me something so funny. Last Tuesday I was finishing reading the book and my dog was sleeping next to me. I was calm, focused on a part that was talking about Dr. Jekyll's transformation, but a terrific transformation. So when suddenly my dog barked very loud. No, that was very very funny because my hair almost come out. So that was funny for me. I don't know. Anyway, the only thing that I have to say is that I totally recommend this book. This is all for this video, but remember, the name is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and it is very good. If you like drama and maybe confused, because at the beginning is a little bit confused because you think that Mr. Hyde is a person apart. I mean, Dr. Jekyll is a person, Mr. Hyde is a person, but at the end you look and you read that they are the same person. So it is good. Read it. I recommend you. And that's all, guys. Thank you so much. See you soon, I think. Be safe and bye bye.